Hearing process city assistants.
Greg Rinker, EMR Ben, Firewise Community.
Ed Muir, Ben, citizen.
Linda Muir, Ben, citizen.
Melanie Keebler, mayor of Bend.
Julia LaFollette, that's first reading.
Thank you.
Bill Jennings, Sheets County Commissioner.
Thank you. And is there anyone online? Chair Vice Chair Perkins.
Megan Perkins, Ben, City Councilor.
Is there anyone else online, Stephen? Anybody else I can't see?
Jessica Gamble.
Okay, Jessica? Anyone else? Jessica's also with the Homeowner Network. Okay, great. So then let's review of our financials. Did you all look at those?
Yes.
What I noticed about our financials was we've actually approved 150,000 to be held as restricted for the projects. And then we also voted and approved for the coordinated entry, $46,372. And I couldn't see where those had been appropriated for this next year in our budget. So anyway, it does show that we're spending programs, it's allocating 350,000, but we actually allocated in that meeting 150,000. So those are just some adjustments that I saw. Did anybody see anything else?
Those are the ones that I had caught. So.
Okay, good. All right, so let's make note of those so that we can get our financials up to date for our next meeting. Do we need a motion on that, do you think? Pat, you want to make one?
I make a motion to have revised financials for our next meeting to indicate the funds allocated in the previous meeting.
I second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that is great. All right, so now we have public input. We've allocated, we thought it would be really important to let the public speak in the first of our meeting because you always seem to be slammed at the end, and to respect that our community has had a lot to deal with lately. If you do want to speak, you can come over to that table, introduce yourselves, and you have 2 minutes because we don't have that much time today. In case we only have 2 people, then you can speak a little longer. Do we have anyone here in the room that wants to make comments?
Yep.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Okay,
I'm Craig Rinker. I'm the president of the DMR Bend Firewise Community, a neighborhood on the west side of the Shoots Market Road and east of Juniper Ridge. Our neighborhood was at a level 3 evacuation because of the mile marker 132 fire. We remained at a level 1 evacuation for 5 days. This is the second time in 4 years we've been evacuated because of fire on Juniper Ridge. Additionally, I'm a member of the Project Firewise Neighborhood Coalition. Our Firewise community was formed in response to the Juniper Ridge fire on August 15, 2020, started by an RV on dry grass that burned 20 acres. There have been 20 fires requiring emergency response there so far this year. The reoccurrence of fires demonstrates that people occupying Juniper Ridge are frequently unable to control fire. On March 14, 2022, I sent an email to Bend City Council expressing our concern for the threat that uncontrolled fire on Juniper Ridge posed to neighboring properties. I urged the city to take action to property owned by the city to reduce the risk of fire. On April 5th, 2022, Eric King assured me by email that mitigation work would be done on Juniper Ridge that summer. On November 25th, Eric and I exchanged emails about a fire on November 19th. Clearly, the mitigation work was insufficient to prevent fire on November 19th. On October 9th, 2023, I sent an email to Bend City Council and County Commissioners, thanking Sergeant Garibay for leading the work to create a fire break along the east side of Juniper Ridge. In that email, I urged the county and city to do more to prevent fire. While fire breaks may reduce the risk of spread of a slow-moving fire, preventing ignition is the best way to prevent fire risk. More must be done to prevent a source of ignition from causing a wildfire in areas of high fire risk. The several major fires that have originated in homeless camps this year should clearly demonstrate that actions taken so far are not adequate. In addition to the fire risk caused by the occupants of Juniper Ridge, gunfire day and night is a frequent occurrence. Packs of aggressive dogs roam the area. They've attacked my neighbor's goats and chased her into her home. Theft and other criminal activity is rampant. Spending resources to resolve the homeless crisis is more productive than fighting fires. It will improve the living conditions of those impacted and reduce the cost to surrounding neighbors. I urge all government leaders to take meaningful action to reduce the risk of fire ignition, to improve the lives of all community members and reduce criminal activity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you so much for coming this morning and giving us a historical perspective of what's been going on. Yes, it's truly a concern for all of us, all 210,000 people that live in Deschutes County. So thanks for being here.
Sure.
Next person, if you could like put your address and things on a piece of paper for our record, that would be great.
Sure. Good morning, my name is Ed Bueller. My wife and I have been residents of Banner for a little over 7 years. In 2 minutes, it's challenging to express over 2 years of frustration. Nevertheless, the county and city officials need to stop debating and provide some clear actions. Specifically, managed camps with wraparound services must be done in Bend, Redmond, and Lapine. Get the people out of the woods, and if they don't go, send them on their way. This is a ticking bomb. Shootings, deaths, fires make this an emergency. Let's act like it is an emergency, or do we need another major fire to make the point? Second point, enforce the law. Stop rationalizing row camps and enforce the rules. Third point, stop enabling the homeless with endless services. The service providers, while well-intentioned, are actually encouraging homelessness. They have no accountability and no clearly defined goals. In fact, they don't want homelessness to end because they will be eliminating their jobs. Stop the gravy train. Services need to have a clear purpose of reducing homelessness. Today, they don't. Finally, there needs to be an accountability of taxpayer funds across the boards. Millions, many millions have been spent, and the problem is worse, not better. Piecemeal solutions don't work, and personal agendas need to be replaced with a consistent goal of eliminating homelessness. These people need to follow the law and act responsibility. We all have that obligation. They are no different. In summary, my opinion of the homeless effort today can be summarized as follows. Never have so many people accomplished so little with so much money.
Thank you very much, Ed. Appreciate you being here. All right. Oh, and for the record, show that Commissioner DeBonne just entered. The meeting. Thank you, Commissioner DeBonne, for coming. You know, that's a dangerous spot to sit sometimes.
It was the only seat.
Anyway, just wanted you to know, I think Mr. Dennis is there once. Is there anyone else in the room that cares to make comments? Commissioner Tank.
Let all the citizens go first.
No, I was, yeah, thank you.
Morning, members of the Crow Board. I'm here to make a request, and I emailed hard copy or electronic copy of this to some of the members of the Crow Board, but for those who didn't receive that, I brought a few extra copies. Essentially, I would like to request that the Crow Governing Board consider investing $25,000 in order for us to advance the application for the Gales property to be rezoned so that it can be used for various kinds of shelter and safe parking facilities. This would be an excellent location, providing 7.8 acres, which provide a whole lot of shelter and safe parking spaces. This project with an excellent, very gracious and supportive landowner and a whole bunch of great minds behind it, has been languishing because we cannot get the rezone of this property completed. Which would allow it to be used for indoor shelter under House Bill 2006 emergency siting rules, and would allow the property to take advantage of the county's safe parking code. I guess I would just also say that while the County Board of Commissioners have expressed a lot of made a lot of positive statements about this project. To date, we have not done very much to advance the rezone application process. This landowner, this very gracious landowner, has spent $8,000 of their own money to get a soil survey completed, which is a critical kind of first component of a rezone application, and so that they can provide a public purpose facility for our community. So I think it would be great to see the public sector in our community stepping up and supporting this process getting done so that we can start using this excellent site as soon as possible. One other thing I would say is someone expressed concern to me that making this request is kind of subverting the decisions that the Crow has made about allocation of funds to a first phase of projects solicited under that RFQ. And I just wanted to say I am in no way suggesting that you take back those decisions. I think that the projects that were identified during that process were very solid projects. I'm just saying that it would be great to see $25,000 allocated in addition to those funds to help unstick this very important project that could benefit our community greatly.
Thank you, Commissioner Jen.
Thank you so much.
Interesting. Reading the law, just for a backstory on this, it does specify two things. If the safe parking application is from a nonprofit or church, the limit is 6 vehicles. But if the application is from a public agency and land is outside the Bend urban growth boundary, the limit of 6 does not apply. So, it's complicated, but the property is 1,400 feet from the urban growth boundary. So it does offer tremendous potential. And honestly, we're going to get into it later when I do the presentation on the Redmond project. But I love Redmond's rules. They have clear rules on what a managed camp can do on the within the 45 acres that the county owns. So it kind of cross connects. So let's keep that our advisement later in the meeting. Do we have any other raised hands online?
Kathy.
Kathy, yes, Kathy, go ahead. And I do have copies. If it's Catherine, are you available?
She's muted.
Unmute. There's a copy of her letter in case you didn't see it. Did you guys all see it? There it is.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, you can. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for your patience. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the Crow Board today. Commissioner Adair, Councilor Perkins, Councilor Zwicker, Mayor Dan Richer, and Sister City Councilor Andrea Blum. I am here today to review the letter that we sent to the Crow Board on July 10th of 2024. It's an urgent request for public safety inclusion in Crow's 5-year strategic plan. To introduce myself, the Newberry Regional Partnership is a team of public and private citizens that have come together to develop a strategic action plan for growth and change in the Lapine, Sun River, and Three Rivers areas. Our mission is to advance rural vitality in an evolving Newberry country through civic engagement, community-led action, and partnerships. NRP is writing to you today on behalf of the community to express our deepest concern regarding the recent Darling 3 fire. The fire, determined by BLM to be human-caused and confirming it was in or near an area of a homeless camp, underscores the critical need for public safety measures within Crow's 5-year strategic plan. While we understand and greatly appreciate Crow's focus on finding solutions for homelessness, the Darling 3 fire highlights a vital gap in current strategies, ensuring the safety of both the housed and the unhoused populations in our community. We urge Crow to prioritize public safety by incorporating the following elements into the 5-year strategic plan and to take action. Now, I do realize some of these things you are doing, so please keep that in mind while I go through them. Fire prevention and education, develop and implement fire safety education programs specifically directed to encampments on public lands. This should include proper campfire protocols, safe fuel storage, and evacuation procedures. Collaboration with fire agencies. Establish strong communication channels with local fire departments, Forest Service, Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office, Bureau of Land Management, as well as Deschutes County Sheriff's Office and elected officials to proactively address fire risks associated with the homeless encampments. Safe shelter options. And I realize this is in your plan as well. I'm just suggesting to keep this in mind as far as a near-term solution, if there's any way that can be done. Explore and implement safe shelter or long-term camping options in each community that prioritize fire safety and reduce the reliance on potentially hazardous open fires for warmth and cooking in South Deschutes County. Keep in mind, this letter was written on July 10th before the mile marker 132 fires. So these things need to happen throughout Deschutes County for public safety. We believe that incorporating public safety measures into the 5-year strategic plan is a critical step towards ensuring the well-being of all members of our community. We urge you to seriously consider our request and would welcome the opportunity to discuss the matter further. Thank you for your time and attention to this urgent matter. My name is Kathy DeBone and my address is 16435 Sprague Loop in Lapine, and I've been a resident there at that address for 20 years. Thank you.
Kathy, can you please tell what you're doing this weekend, just to let the community know what you have set up this Saturday?
Yes, we took some time to tour the public lands a few times in the last month in an effort to learn more. There is a serious trash issue, which I believe creates a hazard, a fire hazard. One camp that we identified is just directly south of Lapine, probably less than a mile. It is a huge abandoned camp on BLM. On Saturday, we are partnering with Republic Services, the City of Lapine, Deschutes County Solid Waste, Deschutes County Sheriff's Office, and Newberry Regional Partnership to conduct a cleanup of that area. So we're very excited to make some progress, and I think we're going to have a good turnout.
Thank you. Thank you. No, thank you for setting that up.
You're welcome.
I appreciate.
Come join us.
Yes. I've been bringing cases of trash bags to Kogo for quite a while, saying, you know, I taught my children to clean up after themselves, and I believe most people taught their children not to play with matches. So I feel like you've got to be so careful, and you've got to stress safety because of the hazards that are there. Kathy, I think that's incredibly important. We've learned that a lot. Needles, things that will be there, biohazard materials. We've got to really, really be careful.
And I think that most of our children thankfully have access to garbage services. And yeah, we're grateful for that.
In response to that, I want to shout out to Republic Services. During our tour of the public lands, there were two camps, one large camp and one small camp, that did request receptacles for garbage. Republic Services stepped up and they have provided receptacles for garbage in those two camps. The large camp had a 30-yard container and that was just emptied yesterday or the day before, and it's been brought back for more. So it's a great way that we've been able to empower some of the folks that want to clean up to actually clean up their own camps. So I'm very happy about that. We've applied for grant funding for fire extinguishers and fire blankets in the camps as a near-term solution. So that's been really successful too, and ongoing.
Thank you. That is a success story, and thank you so much for reaching out and having the homeless there actually clean up and fill those dumpsters. All right, is there anyone else online? Are we good?
Jessica here.
Did you raise her hand?
Yeah.
Okay, Jessica, Jessica, we're running, you've got 2 minutes, please. Can you unmute, Jessica?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, so my name is Jessica Gamble. I'm the executive director and founder of Home More Network. We help unhoused neighbors in Central Oregon, especially out at China Hat and Juniper Ridge right now. We're currently engaging in outreach outposts that are collaborative outreach events that happen every Wednesday between China Hat and Juniper Ridge. One of the things that we're focusing on is fire prevention. We've been distributing personal size fire extinguishers, and we're currently building partnerships with other fire agencies to be able to continue that effort. I'd like to encourage anyone that's interested in joining us in our efforts to reach out to Home More Network. You can reach out on our website at homemorenetwork.org or homemorenetwork@gmail.com to see how we can work together. We're inviting other service providers, citizen advocates, people of the community to join forces to be able to help unhoused neighbors into their next chapter successfully, that include housing, to also help them through other barriers and to work on the fire prevention aspect side of it. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Jessica. I just want to repeat your email address. Is it homemorenetwork@gmail.com?
Yes, homemorenetwork@gmail.com, and our website is homemorenetwork.org.
Okay, wonderful. I know you've been an asset to our community, and I thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Adair.
Okay, we'll talk later. Item number 5 is the update on Deschutes County and the city of Redmond. Kat, I'm so glad you're here too. Stephen, do you have access? There it is. Continuing with services. Okay, that's incredibly difficult to read. And that's not, yes. So let's go ahead with the next page, please. Okay, I found that map a little difficult. I have a better one. What we have here is we have 137 plus acres that the county owns. It's where it's blue. That's those 137 acres that we want to exchange with DSF. Oh, and this has only been going on for, can you believe it? 20 years. 20 years. Patience is a virtue. Okay, so like right down below that, you're going to see the green, the rectangle, the long skinny rectangle. Now that is the 45 acres that the commissioners have acknowledged has a tremendous potential. It's within the UGB of Redmond in order to put a managed camp. And what I personally really appreciate about Redmond's rules is that this camp needs to be safe for the people in it and outside of it, and it must be fenced. So if we kind of take some of the other work that's been going on in the county and we like fence 8 acres, and according to Redmond code, it must be a 6-foot tall fence that's has screening on it. Only the entrance and exit areas will be not screened, but this is protection for people that live within, that have made that choice to be part of the solution, and people that live outside too, because that area of Redmond has a lot of amazing companies that have been incredibly patient, such as Medline. Anyone else out there that you think's deserves an award for patience, Kat?
Pretty much anybody bordering 17 at this point
Yeah.
deserves a tremendous amount of patience, and they have been, and I appreciate it. They too have been impacted, not recently this year, but in the past by fires in that area. So they understand the need for safety, and one of the things that we've also discussed about not just having the camping code where it is, but the proper ingress and egress for fire and safety vehicles to access that property. So it's supposed to be something that is safe for the occupants in that manner.
And the interesting thing about this map is at the very bottom of the green, I believe, is where actually it's 12.5 acres. And that's where Oasis Village is on 3 acres. And then above that, it's like 9 acres that we are still determining what's going to happen there. But so you can see, we are so lucky as a county that we have this property within city limit, within the UGB. So let's go to the next slide then. Okay, now this has a lot of amazing details in it. What we've done, the sanctioned camping, the unsanctioned camping. We've got low barrier in Redmond going on. We have high barrier transitional. We have Birch, which used to be the Bethlehem Inn, which is considered subsidized supportive housing if you move to the right. And then you'll see that we have a couple other projects that are out there. And then the wonderful news about Redmond is they have several outstanding affordable housing projects, such as Habitat for Humanity is there, Housing Works is there, Rooted Homes is doing some things, and then we have First Story. And also you may all remember that the county gave 40 acres to the city of Redmond a couple years ago, and they're working on doing housing for 485 different houses, cottages, etc., which is another, will fit in here somewhere. And talking to someone, I really believe that we need more of the middle range of this supportive housing for our community. So want to go to the next slide? Okay, these are the standards the city of Redmond has set up, which this location will be following. Their open flames are prohibited. The fencing, as I mentioned, is 6 feet tall. It's green. And then the on-site presence, as far as one of their rules is having a code of conduct. So what we do after hours, necessary documents, and how much actually social service help we can provide there. And the wonderful news is that attending a meeting in Salem, hearing about what's happening in Eugene, they have a program, a pilot program where the law enforcement, social workers, everybody has worked together. But what they are doing is they are meeting with this camp 4 out of 7 days, 4 or 5 times a week. They're meeting with people that are there so that we can actually make incredible progress. Their success rate there was, it's a project, I believe about 30 people, but 88% success. They've actually moved on to housing. So to me, it seems like when you have someone that needs a lot of help, you can't just see them once a week. You actually need to see them as many times a week as you can. You need a team of a couple people. And I'm really hoping that, because Redmond has so clearly laid out the rules, and that's what we can bring there when our service provider comes and with their proposal. So next page, please. So there are certain things, basic hygiene support that have to be provided. It's complying with House Bill 3115. And then this is what we're talking about, the goals. Moving them out of homelessness, getting them into a managed camp, and moving them to the 45 acres, but actually just a part of the 45 acres. Redmond Code, to repeat, only allows 25 pods or camps per acre. So if we did 8 acres, that would be maxed out at 200. But that's really what Redmond felt that was a good point to me. Kat, do you have any feedback on that?
My only feedback is there, is I'm not sure we're gonna free range to the other 45 acres.
No.
There's going to have to be
No,
someplace.
it's gotta,
equally
this is where they
managed
have
and
to go.
supported. So that statement seems like, oh, they can move off and then just go over here, and that would be an inaccurate.
Right, that's not
statement.
gonna work. I'm actually, let's see, I had some feedback yesterday from someone who just visited the camp, and I've just set up my appointment for Tuesday morning. in case anybody else wants to go with me and visit those 45 acres. So, yes, definitely, no, it's not, it can't be free range. This is where you have to go. This is what we're doing, but we're gonna really help you and we're gonna make it safe for you and our community. So, and Oasis Village, of course, is right in that general vicinity. They are doing some great things there, and I know they actually just got their boulders. They're trying to bring their sound down and soften their look, and those boulders, thank you to Taylor Northwest for donating a couple of truckloads of boulders for Oasis. They're on a budget, but they are doing an excellent job in making a difference. So what about next page?
So Commissioner, there, one more thing,
Mhm.
as we're looking at this, that current acreage, that top of that 45 acres has been lived on, and it does have some of the same issues that you're seeing in BLM and other places with, you know, waste, solid waste removal, the need for cleanup before we can even get there, so it should probably be a line item in there that's gonna have to be.
It'll have to be, definitely, it won't be able to be ignored.
Yep.
And we'll have to take that. Yes, that's what I've heard, that there are definitely some issues on the 45. So, Stephen, next page. Okay, this is concept number 2, exactly, that's right where we need to go. Now, Commissioner Tang and I actually voted for concept number 2. I feel like it's important to set guidelines, strict guidelines that will make this a success. Modeling off of what we see, there's called a Sunbreak Ranch out of San Diego that has a triage concept. It seems to be working well. And then what we've heard from Lane County and their success rate. So here's a repeat of some of the responsibilities of going for concept number 2, the 6-foot fence, screening, making it safe for people that live there. And we know that that is a concern by people that are homeless. They want to be safe. And, you know, that is one of our goals, and we want our community to be safe. So, the next page, please. Okay, manage number 3. This one was even a bit more, we felt like starting with concept number 2 was a good place to start. And then we will know after, what do you think, 6 months, 3 years? We'll have some really good feedback. I would think within 6 months, we'll know. The managed camp, this is what I did not mention earlier. The Lane County managed program actually has it was a 60 to 90 day range. They said 60 was too short, but they actually found out that they were successful in 90 days with this 4 to 5 day a week, couple people meeting and making a difference, you know, getting them their ID, helping them. They moved on to housing, or they moved on to where they needed help. If they needed substance use disorder, then they found them a place where they need to go. So their time frame was actually 90 days. And
Can I ask you, you know, when you're talking about this area in Eugene, were those people, did they bring their own
they were actually
trailer or they were housing provided on the?
They had their camp within an area in Lane County. And so they went to them and they went to the businesses and they collaborated with everybody together in order to, hey, we're going to work on this area and we are going to accomplish something. And so they were there and they made them part of the program.
But I mean, did they pick up their camp as it was and move it to the new location, or did they provide?
They did not move it. No, they worked from where they were located at that time. Now the Sunbreak, I believe that they've been up because they're talking about like a huge number in San Diego. But no, the Eugene camps were working from areas. So you know what, maybe there's some people on the 45 acres that we can actually make into our 8 acres, if that's the number of acres that we find comfortable with.
So part of that is gonna be accessibility. We can't just pin a dot in the middle of the 45 acres and say this is where it's gonna go, because you're gonna have to have road access, fire safety management asset. So it's gonna have to be somewhere along the division of the future.
Where the 21st Street
goes.
is coming in, and that's coming in next
Right.
spring. So
That is our hope.
so maybe you can go with me on Tuesday morning, I don't know. 10:30?
I will-
Check and see if you
I
can
will
go.
check my schedule. I might have a meeting.
Okay, well, if you can, if anybody else would like to, you know, at first I was envisioning that these 45 acres were all free and clear. Well, no, they're not. So we've got to look and see what we have there.
I have a question. Have we do we know where the funding will come from for the service providers to provide services in that area? Or do we have service providers that are already interested in doing that?
Well, we've been talking to a few people and I'm really thinking that we will find some funding. The county actually had set aside 1.5 million for something, and I know we're working with the city of Redmond on this. They seem like they've been an excellent partner. We both want to, you know, we have like national industry out there that has been dealing with this. Medline is a phenomenal company that has had more patients. And so between the two of us working together, I believe that we will have an opportunity. And if you go with 8 acres of fencing, 6 feet tall, you know, there are costs involved, but it's just like Taylor Northwest stepping up and providing free boulders. There are probably people in the community that will be willing to step up and help us with this project too. We have our public-private partnerships.
Great.
Where are we meeting, Patty?
Well, I was gonna leave from here with Deputy Blaylock, so if you want us to pick you up down there.
meet you at Oasis.
Okay, all right, Oasis then, it is. All right, next page, please. Okay, here, everyone take a quick glance at some of the different things that services will need to consider. There's, you know, there are a lot of things. I was told electricity by Rick Russell would be phenomenal. We could have our electricity there. So I immediately called the man I know in charge of Central Electric. Of course I did. And of course he says, well, Patty, I don't know about that. Unfortunately, it's Pacific Power that is in that. So now we're talking to Pacific Power, so I don't have quite the connection that I did have originally, but you know, what if the power company can do something to help us with this? Because it is actually for the entire community. And I'm hoping that, you know, it's, I know Brent was gonna call Pacific Power and they were gonna talk about it together. So I think that's highly amazing and, you know, I'm never too shy to ask. So we'll see. But do you see anybody else see anything there? I was seeing where they were saying we need to provide propane. And if we don't have electricity, I've seen some amazing little generators lately that are available. I know they use them in like the safe parking program that will help people with their location. So, you know, anybody have any other feedback on this?
I think if there was a way to have electricity or, you know, something, we know that propane heaters are used widely because they work and they're portable, but they are more of a fire risk, you know? So I think that if there was an ability to do something with electricity or that could support that area, that would be great.
I've seen like solar
Yeah,
power generators. I think the
I've heard of
capacity is
that too.
probably limited, but I have seen them advertised lately. So, yeah, I know. Yes. Possible next steps, the next page, Stephen. So, okay, so you know, we've already skipped number 1. Well, number 1 just flows into number 2, and that's where we are at this moment in time. I know there was an article in the paper on it yesterday. I feel really optimistic. I'm really looking forward to working together with Redmond and actually helping people and helping our community at the same time. So I, you know, it hasn't been easy, but I'm so glad that we've made progress. So any other comments, questions?
Kat and I were in the meeting this week in Redmond about this, and I think there was a lot of feedback from service providers, and so I think that has been great to have staff engage with service providers and do planning. It sounds like there's going to be some, you know, breakout sessions for service providers and public agency staff to kind of work together on the concept. I think that's great.
I just feel like honestly, it's continuity and it's almost a daily continuity. Handing someone a water bottle on Wednesday isn't really the answer. I mean, every Wednesday, sometimes we desperately do need water bottles, but it's gotta be incredible continuity for making a difference and transitioning people on to, serious help. And then the other thing that I so appreciate about Rick Russell's program, that Safe Parking, is that their team follows up with people that they've had move on. They follow up with them for 6 months. That's where we've got to make sure that they don't fall through the cracks. I mean, right now, I know that the Giving Plate is feeding 5,000 people a month. And those are people that are barely hanging on. You're seeing the inflation. It's over 20% the last couple of years. Food prices are not going down. I mean, sometimes there's specials, but food right now is so expensive. The Giving Plates resources have been so demanded upon.
Well, I
They've got-
think when we look at that and the Giving Place just one service
Right,
provider.
I know.
I mean, neighbor impacted 70,000 people a month, Patty, and that's in the Tri-County region of Warm Springs. And when you take that and you extrapolate that over the population, our food scarcity is serious, and it's not just people living in the camps.
No, well,
So,
no,
yeah.
the Giving Plate is really people that are still in their homes.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that we have this huge group that,
Yeah, and I think that most of, I mean, Molly could speak to more to that, but most of the people that receive like the food, I think that the Giving Plate gets food from you guys,
Yeah,
right?
we're the regional food. bank.
Yeah. And we give a lot of food boxes, all of the service providers gives a lot of food boxes, people are still in housing, so.
I know,
Absolutely.
well, and I do want to acknowledge the other day when I was at the Giving Plate, I said, oh my gosh, it's too bad you don't have a relationship with Everhart's Dairy because they're just amazing. And Renee looked in the thing, she goes, oh my gosh, we have milk today. And I go, well, let me call them and see. I called them that afternoon. That morning, he had just signed a contract that Renee was not aware of with the Giving Plate. And I was like, so I just wanted them to know how much I appreciated that. I just thought that was outstanding and, just really nice to see. She said so many times they don't have dairy products and they serve a lot of kids. So it was really great to know.
Your vice chair has a hand up.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead, Megan.
Thank you. I just want to start by saying I think that the potential for this project is really great. I think that I really respect all the work that the county and the city of Redmond have done for this project. I think that there's a long way to go with this project, and I just want to say something about this and the earlier comment that we heard about the Gales property. I just really would like us to start acting like a coordinated office again. The whole concept of the CHRO was all of the government bodies coming together equally to support solutions. And we pushed through this really unique regional RFP, I think the only pilot program in the state to do that. We really restated our beliefs and our values with this regional RFP. And we had independent experts look through this RFP, review the 7 applications, and we all agreed to pool resources and staff and money and land together to do this project. And we took the advice of the experts and we agreed to move forward. We voted to move forward with 4 of them. One of them was Oasis Village expansion. One of them was Mountain View Safe Parking in Redmond and Bend. One of them was the Dean Swift property, and the other one was the Old Les Schwab on I-90. There were 3 others that needed more cooking in order to be fully baked. And I feel like we're kind of losing the focus of this office, and I feel like resources and allocation of funds have been unilaterally removed from this RFP and its 4 projects. And as far as I'm aware, no vote has been taken with the county to make the decision to focus money and resources elsewhere. And we have people in the room today and at our council meeting say, Bend, do more, do more, do more. And we want to do more, but we need the help of this office in order to get these projects that are in the city of Bend going to the next step. And I just find it really, uncomfortable too, that we're sort of working out internal issues with county commissioner, like in the CHRO. So I just would like to remind us all that when we did this RFP, the idea was to really come together and have a regional approach and solutions to find outdoor managed camps. And I just would like us to get back to there and make sure that we're continuing to focus on the projects that we said we wanted to move forward with. That's all.
Thank you so much for those comments. Is there anybody else? Okay, let's go to item number 6. Ms. Bainey?
Sure, I can be very brief. Right now, actually this afternoon, in about an hour and a half, we're going to be doing our second tour of the Old Mill Inn and Suites. And the reason behind the tour is that we are working with the service providers to identify sort of on the ground what the units look like, the services that will be provided, what they will need to be doing in order to be able to contract for a certain number of those units. And so they anticipate Old Mill Inn and Suites to get their certificate of occupancy the first part of September. And that allows us to go through the process of actually placing individuals, of which we begin October 1st. So the funding is there, the contracts are in place, and right now we have the touring of the providers just to make sure that they know what's there. You will hear that there could be as many as 75 units, but likely 74. The reason for that variation is that they are possibly in need of an area for case management, an area for drop-in office space. There will also likely be a unit for an on-site overnight property management person. And so I would submit that we should be using a number of 74. But those units are a variety, could have bunk beds, so could have a family, could have, couples, it all depends on what the needs are. And we will be using coordinated entry in addition to likely the set aside of a certain number of those units for a potential pilot with China Hat and being able to use that as a resource to complement that effort. So any questions?
So how many providers are you looking to have in that operation? I did tour it a couple weeks ago, and they have put in mini kitchens in all the units, mini kitchens. So really a nice feature.
They're beautiful units. I think
Yeah.
any of us would be thrilled to live there.
Well, not exactly.
Well,
Where would Max, my dog, go?
They are, well, but I think that there's a sense of pride for individuals
Yeah.
that will be able to be there, and that's for rehousing, and so they are longer term stays. They're just like an apartment that you would have, except we have a partner who's interested in having those units be available to those that are most in need versus market rate. So we are working with Kobo, Neighbor Impact, Shepherd's House, Mosaic. It just depends. St. Charles, JBRJ, all of our partner network that will be looking to house. The big piece is, can you provide the case management, the wraparound services to make sure that the individuals are there that are actually supported in a manner that helps them be successful. And so that's why we won't have one large scale provider that's taking all of the units. It's a partnership between many providers and being able to provide services at that new resource.
So when you say it'll come through the coordinated entry program.
Correct.
So those names, say, there's a family that's at the top, then do you have to pair them with a provider?
That happens in the case conferencing meetings. And so typically a person gets on the coordinated entry list because somebody like a provider does an assessment.
They've already.
Yeah, and so they're already being worked with one or multiple providers. And so that'll happen in those meetings, and so CYC won't have to, or the property manager won't have to really worry about that piece.
Okay, so
Yeah,
the benefit there is being able to prioritize people. If we have a family with small children and we have an individual and we have there maybe you have someone with special needs or medically fragile, or it's just a variety of prioritized need. In addition, it helps to alleviate some of the duplication. So if you are going to all of us for services and we don't have a way of really structuring that for you to help you be really deliberate about the services that you're getting and help to coordinate that a little better, we can have duplication and you'd be spending a lot of your time trying to get from here to there and there. So a lot of that is really in that ability to focus the services, align for the individual, and help really be able to be more strategic.
Can I ask? If you're talking about 74, but maybe, more actual individuals involved, what kind of dent does that make in the list?
Sure.
in the list. It's different every day. How many people are on the list this month? I don't know off the top of my head.
So what, yeah, how many are on the list?
I can't tell you how many are on
The
the list
changes
because it's
weekly.
so
Well,
dynamic
like,
and
you can't remember like today's date
I
at
have
10:10.
not touched data for so
But,
long.
yeah, are
that
we
I can
talking
get it to
hundreds
you.
or
Yes,
thousands?
hundreds, yeah,
So, theoretically, 100 out of several hundred.
yeah.
But at the same time, we're complementing that with, which would be coming up later in the agenda, additional safe parking, some additional,
Yeah.
the project that you just talked about in Redmond. This is a regional number, so it's also, we also have the opportunities for the pods that are coming online, the expansion of Oasis Village, all of these things, that shelter, being able to get people in and stabilize for a short period so they can get to the next space. There's a lot that's happening now. And if you remember last year, we were able to rehouse within just shy of 9 months, 234 households. And so there is momentum. That snowball's getting bigger and bigger. And it actually feels like a snowball outside today, but so it feels like a mountain that's too big to climb, but we're making some headway.
Yeah, I think that's the perspective that a lot of people don't have. Is, how many people come onto the list in a year, how many people go off? The sense of making
Even in a
progress.
day,
Yeah.
even like having like we got the CPI number or whatever this morning, just having a number, like, hey, the number as of April 1st, what was it April 1st and what is it August 1st?
And that was the impetus for the investment in the CES.
Right,
So we
the
got that.
47,000.
Yes, absolutely. So that can be on a website.
So
People can
if
see
we
it.
could get that checked, that would be great.
Yes,
And
and I know we don't have a lot of time, but for context, when we, like what Patty was talking about in Eugene, when there's access to housing, we know we have 74 units coming online.
But how
We
many
could-
families? Can anybody ever answer that question?
Well,
Because nobody could answer it when I took my tour.
how many families?
How many families are gonna be able to fit there? I only saw a couple of units that were actually like family friendly. Yeah,
Well, part of it will be.
Who's prioritized for the
yeah,
units?
right.
but
That's
aren't
question.
aren't kids prioritized, honestly, guys?
Oh, I'm not
I mean,
saying
how
they
many
shouldn't be,
kids have
Patty,
we-
yeah.
No, but I mean, how many kids have we heard in our school
Yes.
systems are homeless? And
Yeah.
honestly, what is more important than giving those kids a decent break on their life?
Yeah, I agree, which is why I work in youth homelessness.
Yeah,
Yes, so I totally agree with that.
Well, good.
But so when we have the housing options available that we can, because service providers are working with these people every day and multiple times a week already, because that is happening, that we can move people in very quickly. It's just that we don't often have the resource available. So I think that, and as far as the list, I think that the list will grow when we have resources because we're referring people to that list. And when we have nothing to offer people, it's really hard to, say, okay, let's sit down with me for 15 or 20 minutes to do this assessment to get you on this list when there's nothing we can give them, like on the other side of that. So it's important to do, and I think we'll be growing it with that money that the CHRO has allocated, and we appreciate that, but it's a big part of it. But that's a great question, and we hope to have that data like available, for everyone to see, right?
When do we hope to have?
I think when we have with the investment of CHRO, we're gonna be able to do the
can't
data
ask them to
dashboard.
create something we haven't paid the startup for.
Yeah.
We are actively recruiting for the coordinated entry specialist position, just as a brief update. I know I'm just taking time away from my presentation, but that's okay. And then we we were planning to come back to the Crow on December 1st with an or relative
When? When you're
December
coming?
1st.
December 1st.
Yes. With an update, and I am hoping, because our in-house services data coordinator is really excited about dashboard work. And I know that he's already doing some research and due diligence and is ready to rock and roll. So I'm hoping that we have a, not necessarily public facing, but ready to go draft dashboard to present to you.
Sweet.
So, and then one of the functions that we'd like to integrate in there is the filtering, so you can get to the families in August and see that, to be able to drill down and filter. So if you have a specific question, you can seek a number to answer that.
Okay, all right, so actually, like, the Old Mill was supposed to open last November, so now it's gonna open this October. Is that, it's taken that much longer?
any project that would be of that nature is going to run into issues and they needed to completely redo all of the piping under that facility. All of it. And so they're not in a breach of contract. They have not asked for additional funding. Matter of fact, the delays are unfortunately on the developer. And so the longer that the delay has gone on, the less money they will actually receive. Because they're not sitting on that money, they only have an opportunity to tap it once they're open. And so and some may say that's not quite fair, but really that's how contracting works. And so we could have opened in June, but for safety reasons of a active construction site, we as a community determined that it would be best to go ahead and open it when it's fully completed so that there are no safety concerns. So they're not behind in terms of for us holding the contract. It just has taken a little longer for the community than anticipated.
Okay, I believe it was purchased in October of 2021.
I don't know when the facility was actually
That's
purchased.
what the news story said. So I mean, it just seemed like we desperately need it, and and it's taken a while. So anyway, okay, so you're saying now it will open for residents October 1st. That's the day. That's the day that we're going, and we'll have a grand opening in September then sometime.
I don't know that we'll be showcasing the facility, which would feel awkward for individuals that are moving from
Before they move in.
homelessness. I don't know, Commissioner. I'm happy to.
Okay, I was just told that they were gonna do something, so
Okay.
it would be, I know people have been driving by it for quite a while. So anyway, it'll be nice to have it open and functioning for those 74, 80, 100 people that will be living there.
Yeah.
And you're telling me a lot of different teams will be working with them, so good. Nice to hear. All right, are there any other questions or comments online? Any raised hands? All right, okay, Lynn, let's go to the HUD landlord assistance update.
Okay, well, I may, because I was in Atlanta during the work group sessions, I may have slightly missed the mark, but this is all important information anyway. So Mickey connected with me, I think based on Commissioner Adair's request to kind of articulate homelessness and eviction prevention and landlord engagement, et cetera. So next slide, please. So I'm going to share some statistics for our eviction prevention and rental assistance programs, which are keeping folks out of the very systems that we're trying to bolster. And I'm going to attach a price tag to that. I think it's pretty shocking at the cost to preserve housing for folks as related to providing homeless services. So next slide, please. So Neighbor Impact has been the purveyor of rental assistance for a very long time. We have short and medium-term rental assistance programming that includes state and federal resources and integrated supportive services in the short-term rental assistance side and case management and supportive services for the medium-term rental assistance. Currently, we are administering state funds in ongoing response to the crisis after the pandemic that people still couldn't afford the high cost of housing. So we are utilizing eviction prevention funding from Oregon Housing Community Services. And these resources are imperative in keeping folks housed and out of the system. One of the things that we also are doing is continuing to partner and lean into MAC group work where we can use our existing reputation and foundational infrastructure and policies and procedures that we've built up over the years to deliver and administrate some of the unique funding that's coming out of the executive order and the MAC group. So this is a lot of numbers, realized at the very last minute that I should have presented it differently. So I'm just going to summarize it. In 23-24, we preserved housing for 251 households, 674 people, paid a total of 476 months of rent, expended $621,000. Average payment was $1,305 for a month of rent. And then our fiscal year starts on July 1st. So to date, we've served 37 households, 87 people, 64 months of rents paid, $127,000 expended. And the average payment is $1,990.
I have a question. When the average payment is 1305, is that a monthly payment?
Yes, that's a month payment.
Okay,
So
a month payment.
yeah, if you times that times the 476 total months. And some people are getting, there's a tiered approach based on area median income for that household. And we deliver kind of the least amount possible to stabilize. So we look at that, we look at their area median income and provide it so that we can, you know, the need is huge, the resources are limited, so we try to give them what they need to stabilize and move forward. It would be wonderful if we could provide just a blanket larger timeframe for them to create even more stability, but at current, that's not the intention behind the funding.
And we can have this emailed to
Right.
us, so
Yes,
we don't need to write stuff down.
Mickey has it, and
Okay.
and she can certainly send that out.
Okay.
So then with the specific Oregon Housing Community Services investment in eviction prevention and diversion. We received two different tranches, both connected to Senate bills, 5511 and 1530. We actually don't have a contract for 1530 yet, but this is to serve the biennium. So I'm sorry, we are way behind. 2 slides forward, Stephen, sorry. I'm just looking at my own numbers in front of me. So these are the numbers for the eviction prevention to date. So this is special funding appropriated obviously by the state legislature. We've served 160 households, 399 people for a total of 546 months, 422,000 to date, and that's just utilizing the 5511 funds. Average payment is higher here because these are folks that may have an arrearage balance. So to keep them from being evicted, there's the arrears paid, and then we do a similar stabilization on the other side based on AMI. So these average payments per month were $26.39. We are expecting that additional 1530 money should get the contract. There's been a lot of
How much money
contract.
is that gonna be?
I don't have the allocation in front of me. I neglected to check on that. I think it's in like 1.7 million. And so if you look at these as a solution to keeping folks from entering our overburdened homelessness system right now, and the cost per household or per month, it's a pretty reasonable return on investment. We do some after action connection with folks, not 6 months, but this is for our light touch short-term rental assistance and eviction prevention. Okay, next slide. So one of the things, yes.
How often can people come to the table for eviction prevention?
So one of the things that we found during COVID is that people were needing, because of the need that had cropped up due to the pandemic and just the high cost of rents, as we came out of that, we saw households that really had to braid funding to maintain their housing. And when we got to a certain point, we decided to put in a parameter so that we weren't having high utilizers of the resources when really they needed to look at a different housing intervention. Like if they're using a braided together of 24 months of assistance to maintain their housing, we need to create some sustainability and have those conversations about what are other options for you. So because, you know, we don't want to end that money at 24 months and have somebody then be evicted because they're not able to pay. So we did put a lifetime cap on it of $25,000. And we are allowing folks to access it as much as they need to prevent eviction. They are supposed to have made a payment in the interim. So if they're coming back for assistance and haven't necessarily made a payment, not due to a crisis, like we consider those as well. So we do take into consideration those unique circumstances, but they can come back. For this eviction prevention money, for regular money, we typically say that they can have a standard assistance during the course of a calendar or fiscal year. And then if they have a crisis arise, they can come to us for a crisis. We do the same thing with our regular funding in that we look at the AMI for the number of months of assistance forward.
One more question,
Yes,
and I may not have an answer to this. When you're providing this assistance and you're catching people up, how often in that parameter does the rent actually increase while they're living there and it bumps them into another issue with their stability?
We have certainly seen that, except especially in fixed income households. Which I think is something that we may need to, I know we're really responding to homelessness, but I'm afraid that we're going to have a wave of senior homelessness if we don't look at fixed income versus rents. And there's a slide later that has pretty impactful numbers in it around some of that. So I lost the question. I'm sorry.
You actually answered it. You're good.
Do you want to go ahead then?
Yep, let's move on. So one of the things that is a challenge when you are providing rental assistance funding is that often you've got funders that come to you with parameters X, Y, and Z, priorities A, B, and C, and they don't necessarily, Patty, to your comment, they don't necessarily line up with the exact need. Like responding to family homelessness is absolutely important and imperative. But if the funder dictates that you're not able to serve this population with these monies, then it's important as a provider to find that balance. Yes, you want to serve these populations, but you also want to continue to bring resources into the region. So we accept those with those constraints and then work within that just to ensure that there's additional resources continuing to come into Central Oregon. So when you hear that, the housing department has an $18 million budget, we should be able to do a lot with that, but there are some constraints in there. So it also, what it necessitates is engagement at the local and private level to get some funds that offer flexibility so we can answer those individualized constraints that prevent people from accessing housing. The funders can also set priorities in terms of assistance and the path of access, like coordinated entry. Coordinated entry is best practice for sure and for certain, but sometimes there are specific, it would be really nice to have a provider that's working with somebody to be nimble enough to be able to say, I can handle this issue so we can get you into a house. And I think sometimes that the program constraints, the regulatory restraints have put, they've just limited our ability to solve problems creatively. So in terms of solutions and regional responses, so I didn't want to come just with problems, but some solutions. There are barrier buster funds that both Neighbor Impact and Fuse have in place to help pay for maybe an outstanding property debt and outstanding utility debt, because those are really high denial items for property managers. MAC group landlord engagement and retention funds are woven throughout the program delivery for all the unique programming that the MAC group has come up with and gotten approved. And then increased engagement by local government. I know that we've done interesting things with Deschutes County and City of Bend and City of Redmond money. So I think it just embodies the ideal of the CROW, just at a different level, and not necessarily in response to homelessness, but keeping folks out of the homelessness system. Next slide. So landlord outreach and engagement. It's inherent to the work that you do as a provider of rental assistance. You are connecting with that landlord, you're assuring them that you have these resources available, that you're a legitimate business, because there are some people that have been burned, and so you have to create that trust there. You commit to a certain payment amount. In some of our medium-term programs, we commit to being a tenancy support, so a housing advocate, in that we are there when something goes awry as a third party to not necessarily mediate, but just ensure that the tenant understands, make sure that we're understanding with the landlord what their tolerances are. If they have space to, shift things, be willing, move the rent due date based on a paycheck, things like that. So that's just an inherent part of it. One of the pieces that we've seen that's definitely impacted affordable housing accessibility for low income populations or the populations that Neighbor Impact serves, is that the pandemic created a lot of instability for landlords that had a few number of units. There were some that had to sell out just to get out of a crisis situation financially. Senate Bill 608 had an inadvertent impact on private landlords. The intent was amazing, but their ability to remove tenants that were poor tenants really was escalated, and some of them chose to leave the market. Also, with such high demand, they have really high quality renters versus ours that come with supports, but they do come with some challenges. So there was just a lot of hesitancy around that was created by Senate Bill 608 and the pandemic around engagement. So that leads to outreach and engagement has to be a regional effort. It can't be tasked to one provider because it's for the benefit of all of us. And creating like Neighbor Impact and JRJ and Thrive and anybody that's engaged, Housing Works, we all have awareness of all of these landlords that are willing to step in and lean into solving the problem, especially the private market. I think that what we need to do is come together as a cohort. And Patty, the resource, the HUD landlording toolkit, engagement toolkit, does have some really interesting pieces in there. I looked in some of
the
the
new one, the 5 million the city of Eden got? Are you talking about that?
No, I'm
No.
talking about, Mickey said that you were interested in a specific HUD toolkit, and so I reviewed that. And I think that there are some great ideas, but again, I don't think it can be tasked with just a singular provider. I think it might be a great like adjunct to the Regional Housing Council, MAC group. You know, I know that we're intending to do that, but I think we do have to really be intentional about how we set this up so that we can pull in folks that were unaware of what services, you know, because folks that are landlords maybe sometimes are unaware of services available and supports available to some of the more tenuous renters.
Well, we did hear the story in La Pine. I don't know if Kathy Devon is still on, but someone owned 4 apartments. One of them she rented to a homeless mother and a couple kids. That person did $90,000 damage before she could get her out of that unit. So when you hear those kind of stories, you know, it makes landlords incredibly wary of, you know, having some feelings that they're not going to be totally impacted when that person leaves. Oh, and they didn't pay either. So, you know, they needed a lot of help.
So that goes into why it's important that supportive services are available in every funding package, because regardless of what the housing option or shelter option is that they're in there, they need supports to undo some of the behaviors that are inherent to experiencing homelessness. And the other piece of landlord outreach and engagement to just finish this slide is creating trust is imperative, but also seeking sustainable resources that are more than just here we're gonna throw, you know, sometimes the state throws money at a problem in reactive mode instead of a planful mode. Being able to support those households that might experience a financial crisis after you've placed them and you've paid for their move-in and then they're on their own, we need to be able to backfill that, which we do have money right now, but also the damages cost, because the landlord guarantee program covers housing choice voucher holders. It was extended to those rehoused under the EO temporarily in the OAR, but it's limited to $5,000.
Is that $5,000 number?
And it's a lot of to do to get reimbursed there. So we need to find a standard process, like, and maybe that's at the provider level and something that we can, you know, we're great in Central Oregon about innovating things. Maybe we can come up with a way to make that a standardized application process and whatnot and take that to the state. So I think those are the kinds of things we have to keep all of these pillars in our minds when we're thinking about this, because when you isolate it, it seems like it should be really easy. But when you look at it as the pillars holding up the entirety of the benefit in the process and the success of the clients and the success of the landlords, I don't know where I am on time.
We're not good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
we need to move.
We're done.
I just want to show you next slide, the affordability, and make a plug for the National Low Income Housing Coalition Out of Reach report. It creates a lot of perspective, and the numbers that I wanted to bring your attention to is rent that's affordable to an SSI recipient, $283 a month. Rent that's affordable to a full-time worker at minimum wage, $764 a month. And when you look at those in comparison to the fair market rent, the first column of numbers, they're nowhere near that. And those are fair market rents, those are not market rents. So there's considerations and opportunities. I'll let you look at that via email, and then if you have any further elements that you'd like me to bring back, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you. All right, so yeah, if we can get those slides, maybe that would be great. We need to have our RFQs updated at this time. I think Tammy, you were gonna do
Yeah, I'm
that.
happy to, and I would just say for a fund similar to what Molly is mentioning, the Crow could also use some of your unrestricted funding to create a fund that could also help augment some of that, just as a side note. So the RFQ update really quick. So in the minutes, you will see what was discussed on the 18th. And in addition to that, I can confirm that we have received a request and working through right now, 197,000 from the pod funding, which would be for 10 pods for the expansion of Oasis Village. So that is underway. In addition, Central Oregon Villages, the Dean Swift property have requested $128,700 for 6 units. My understanding is that the city procurement process may end today, and that will be able to allow that to go forward as well. So you have quite a bit left in that 1.1 fund for purchasing pods or for the infrastructure that's required to help support the pod development. So whether that you want to use that, Gales, Redmond, Bend, Sisters Line, that's at your disposal.
So does that mean it would pour concrete or something, or do gravel?
Yep,
You could
you can do
gravel money?
You could, well, depending, it has to be associated with pods. So yes,
Okay,
as
so
long as
put in a
that's-
pod and would be able to gravel it
Yes.
and clean it up. That would
Yep,
really be helpful.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
We can't do landscaping, but if it's something that helps to level the land, if it's
It's taking out Jennifer's
electricity,
landscaping, or is
could
that
be,
fire
yeah, so
prevention?
if we're actually clearing the land to make,
It's a
yes.
twofer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, and, you know, with that, I would say that we can get pretty creative. We can't get too creative, but creative enough, I think.
Okay, so what's that balance right now? The balance remaining is that
So
like,
it's 1.1, so we back out 200, 330, so 300, probably 340 out. So somebody else do the math in their head, and that's what
okay,
they
and
end
that's
up
great.
with.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, so we're talking about 760,000 or
Yep,
something.
thank you. Yep.
Okay, so that's great to know, guys. Yeah, that we've got, that has the flexibility and that.
Out there working.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then, of course, any interest that you're earning on that funding as well. We didn't receive it that long ago, but that'll be back in the fund too. So a little bit of extra change. Yep.
I know they,
Megan has her hand up.
okay, Megan, go ahead.
I just would like to say that it's great that we have this pod money, but we also need to operate these shelters. So just something to keep in mind as we consider, the 4 proposals that were in front of us. And these are challenges that, I know that the city of Bend is having with funding. So just something to think about. I guess I'm not clear where we are in which one of these processes. I mean, I know we've talked about Oasis Village kind of being a done deal, but the other 3, I know that there's some challenges with Dean Swift. I know that we haven't gotten anywhere with the I-90 property, and I know we're still working with Mountain View, but just want to make sure that we're remembering the four things, and that they all need operations money as well.
So, what is going on with Dean Swift then? Who has a report on that?
You will have 6 units there, so that's Central Oregon Villages. And the funding here isn't for the operational funding, and so I would anticipate that that's a connection between the city. I don't know if you have additional information on
Well,
that.
we received notice from OHCS because it's a high barrier shelter that the funds are not eligible from the money that got distributed in the short session.
Correct.
So, we would like to look at discretionary funds. So I think that was the intent, I think, with Councilor Perkins of 1.5 million or other discretionary funds, potentially this year of leftover dollars to fund those programs that might not be eligible for that,
Okay.
those funds. So
We can also work with them on, which I think Katie may be from our team, working with them on some of the things that they could have as voluntary compliance versus being a requirement, and which could help them be more eligible for the funding that is available. But again, it would be a business model change to an organization that we don't determine. So if a mission of an organization wants to stay in a certain lane, that's wonderful, but it doesn't mean that we, on behalf of the state, are allowed to spend dollars there. But more to, happy to outreach to them. I know that Katie's working with them right now too.
Maybe we need to ask the state to expand their business model. This isn't really working. I mean, honestly, and truly, how many fires have we had this month? 8, I believe is, and I'm sure there's more that have been started. We are really on pins and needles. Thank you so much for coming and testifying. It's a nightmare.
We need some flexibility.
Yeah, we need flexibility
And we do have flexibility with this funding. So I hear Megan's pain. We're not forgetting, but we need those proposals to come of what you need, where you need it, when you need it, you know.
So would this body like to receive requests for operational funding out of the CRO funding? Or that certainly is something that's within your purview.
I think we should review where we are with what we've spent and what we think we're gonna accomplish in the
Okay.
body of this board and the time frame allotted, and we can make that decision better.
Sounds good.
Does sound good to expand if we can't finish what we started.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we need to look at where we are before we jump ahead.
The governor's office is keenly aware of the need for flexibility, and when we had our legislators here just earlier this week, that was a big request on behalf of many, that we want to be able to be clear on what the outcomes are that they're hoping to achieve and allow the community using the assets that we have, our faith network, our community-based organizations, the funding that we have locally, to be able to then achieve that goal. Rather than giving us dollars that are so restricted that it keeps us from using tools that we know work. So we have been very, I would say, aggressive in working with the governor's office to allow for that. But I would counter that we have made great success in the arenas that the governor has laid out. And so for the hundreds of individuals that we've been able to rehouse or keep from falling into homelessness, I would say that we've overachieved in terms of what the governor has asked us to do.
Well, I'm actually back to my ask of the governor and Governor Brown, Governor Kotek, is the fact that Deer Ridge is sitting half empty. And we have such mental health issues and substance use disorder, and that's sitting half empty. And you can clearly see that we need some mental health help in a big way. We are just putting Band-Aids on. And, you know, the 8 fires are totally indicative that, it's not, they need to hear it. Yep. I mean, Governor Brown had actually understood the issue, and Colette Peters, the prison director, had heard the issue, and it's an amazing site that's right here in Central Oregon. So I'm pleading again, like change your opinion on that. And I would never ask Dean Swift, Don's house, to change High Barrier, because that's their model, that's what they work with, and that's how they're successful.
Yep.
And we've just got to get them funding.
Yep.
So
We only have
anything more?
5 minutes.
Megan,
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, we only have 5 minutes left, and I just think these conversations are really important. I think we could have an entire meeting about the RFQ and the future steps for Grow 2.0, and it makes me really uncomfortable to try and jam it into the last 5 minutes of the meeting.
can we extend our meeting by a half an hour?
I cannot.
Well, I have problems with that, because I think that's, I think we should in the future plan on the fact, especially if we're going to do public comment for so long, which I absolutely think we should. That is a key component of this office, and I think it's very important. But if it's almost a third of our time on public comment, we just never get to the stuff this is really important stuff we're about to talk about. But I have problems with, like, when we're in the meeting saying, let's extend the meeting. And so, like, because some people may not be able to, not able to do it. And so I just want to make sure that I don't think it makes any sense to start this conversation on Crow 2.0 right now, with 4 minutes left in the meeting, because we can't do it justice. And just wondered what you all thought we should do about that.
Okay, so this next meeting is September 19th. We're sitting here today. Can you look at your calendars and see? Can we start that meeting earlier? Can we start that meeting from 10 to 12:30, given an extra hour, because we have so many critical issues that we honestly need to come to some serious decisions on. Does that work? Can everyone look at their schedule now and see if we could do that? 10 to 12:30? Oh, well. Yeah, birthdays don't count. Yes.
Kathy DeBone's birthday, if she's still on.
Oh, God. Kathy, did you hear that? Okay, so does that work
Yes,
for the
I-
19th?
I-
Okay, could we have a motion then to extend our meeting starting at 10 then on the 19th?
I move that we extend the meeting.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all right, so honestly, I think having public comments at the first of this meeting was incredibly important and respectful to our community, because they are counting on us to and they need to get their feelings out and their history out to the group. You know, why aren't we doing more?
And Tammy, are you going to be able to have anything for us to help with the evolution discussion?
So very quickly, if I could show you these last 3 slides, I did a crosswalk between the sort of tenets of each one of the committees, just as a sort of preamble to start the conversation, and I can populate this further. But, and we can send this out to you, but showing what the Regional Housing Council is meant to do, and this, all of this is able to be massaged into what it needs to be, because the premise is that this serves the communities, not, you know, we're merely setting the table. So this is the outline of the Regional Housing Council, broader housing. Think of it as everything from unsheltered to homeownership. So looking for, these are not all of the priorities, but they want to be, that group is determined they want to work on regional housing needs, advocacy, system alignment, coordination, leveraging of knowledge, as well as resources, which means learning from each other, resource development, blah, 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 blah. You will see all of the cities, the counties within the Tri-County area are members of this, Neighbor Impact, HLC, the Builders Association, the Realtors, state and federal members. We have staffers that have been joining, EDCO, COIC, Regional Solutions. So just sort of an overview of what that looks like. Next slide, please. Then looking at the multi-agency committee group that we have, which is the executive order funding. And there we go. Crosswalked with the Coordinated Houseless Response Office. So these are the requirements, but also the things that the MAC group, which is in coordination with the continuum of care, is working on. Again, that's regional priority is homelessness, system alignment, removing duplication, advocacy, funding, leveraging, all of that. Shares at the bottom of the membership. Again, a collective impact model similar to the Regional Housing Council. And then looking at the Coordinated Houseless Response Office, I noted some areas within ASTRIC that centralized communication was one of the tenets of the Quorum. That really, I think we are hearing from Neighbor Impact and some of that being more regional scale, but making sure that we have an opportunity to dive deep into central or into Deschutes County, not just Central Oregon and the cities. And then the grant process funding and allocation, reporting accountability, that's sort of a, yes, you do that, but most of that is sort of within your own jurisdictions. So that was a way to sort of tee up so you could crosswalk some of the things that all of them are working on just for the conversation.
Great, Mickey, if you want to send that out to us, that would be great. And can we give Megan her 5 minutes now?
Fine with me.
Okay, Megan, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. I just do a quick update. As you all know, we had our meeting on June 20th, I believe, to talk about a potential pilot for China Hat and doing a surge model, some sort of similar to an incident command structure to really start making some changes there for people that are living on, you know, in unsanctioned camping environments. One of the things that during the roundtable, we discussed moving forward with exploring opportunities for funding a peer navigation program for China Hat. We talked about project-based leasing agreements to create arrangements with property owners to match funding requirements for voucher eligibility and create a pool of funding to sort of augment HUD vouchers to place more people in housing. We talked about HUD-supported landlord recruitment. We talked about providing dedicated outreach workers for veterans and freeing up, therefore, resources for others. We talked about the potential for federal funding for increased outreach at China Hat. And we talked about assistance with fuel reduction and fire prevention work at China Hat. So the staff has talked to me about the work that they've been doing since June 20th. And they have done a really excellent job following up and meeting with all the partners that were at the table and those that weren't at the table, and getting buy-in from partners to sort of co-own this work and to increase their own capacity and contribute resources, especially as we would be relying on our service providers to do a lot of this work. And then they've been working together to design a framework and an action plan for implementation. And I know that one of the meetings that they had recently, the VA, they sort of did a deeper dive into the VA's offer to provide a dedicated outreach workers for veterans, which would, then free up resources for non-veterans. And wheels are actually in motion for that to happen, which is really great. And that person would just be doing outreach for veterans at China Hat. And then the other thing is looking at VA HUD, the affordable rental vouchers that are specifically for veterans. So we're looking into sort of how to increase those in that area. And so I think then the next thing that's happening is staff is going to continue to meet with the partners, especially with the service providers, to find these co-owners and these leads and these team members to do the specific actions that we outlined. And we need subject matter experts to be there and trauma-informed people to be out there to really help get people, into a more stable environment. And I think one of the things that we've been talking about is the idea of like piloting a real quality, by name list in China Hat to really get an idea. I know that's something that came up from numerous sources. Like, we need to understand who is there, how many people are there, what the problem is, and what services they need. And so that's one of the things that we're talking about piloting is a very specific quality by name list of China Hat. And then the option of, then transferring this pilot concept and this incident command structure pilot to other, forested areas throughout Central Oregon. And so I believe, and Mickey, correct me if I'm wrong, that at the next meeting, the staff will have a presentation on an actual game plan, a timeline, and who is leading which effort and which component of that, and to sort of get the blessing of the Crow.
Great, thank you so much for that. In case anybody from the community is watching, Covo owns 26 apartments in this area for veterans. And it would be phenomenal if someone listening has an apartment building that they want to sell to that Covo program, maybe for a tax deduction, whatever. But if they could have more apartments, we've had over 35 veterans graduate from the Veterans Village, which is phenomenal. I know it's over 35 now. It's a great program, but they need more apartments. So, and the vacancy rate, last time we were told by our treasurer, Bill Kuhn, the vacancy rate in Bend now is at 11%. So maybe there's some people that really would like to help out our veterans and give back to our community. We have 17,000 veterans in Deschutes County that have served this country. So, and some of them need a hand up right now. So thank you, Megan, for all that update on China Hat. It's we did learn that offensive littering is a state regulation and it can be cited. So if you see a dumpster that's full, that's somewhere that needs to be replaced, please let somebody know or let me know. I've been telling, like, hey, this dumpster's full, that one's full. We've got to get this place cleaned up and we've got to get it safer.
Sharon, I have two questions before we, just in terms of staff supporting you.
Right.
So public comment mentioned a lot around fire prevention and concerns. Do you want us to take a stab at some language that we might be able to support in terms of bringing it back for your strategic plan? And then the other question is, you have a $25,000 request from your unrestricted funds.
Right.
For Gales.
I know, that's why I think we need to do the next meeting, the extra hour.
Okay.
Because the Gales, okay, I've been burned on where we give money, and I don't want to do that to this group. I'm totally for the Gales property. There's an issue on how they want to go for zoning, and what I've been told is RR10 is the way to go. And I just want to confirm with them, like on a dotted line, that that's what they want to do too. Because if they want to do CR, I've been told that that's really not that's not advantageous for this group. And hey, these are public monies. And definitely, I'm so thankful we have the Gales, but I just want that to be confirmed before we actually sign on the dotted line.
Okay, great. So nothing for us to.
Right,
support,
no,
but-
bring it back
Okay.
on our agenda
Okay.
and we'll have
Better-
information.
Better information.
We'll have a
Okay.
presentation and thank you, Commissioner Chang, for bringing that today.
Yeah.
So, okay, anything else? Okay, so you guys all know it's the 19th and it will be an extra hour and thank you so much for being here today.